All right, welcome everybody. As you can see here, we have a lovely Slido code up on the top for you to get you started with. Please take a few minutes and join now. We will be using Slido throughout our AMA and our quiz later. You will see this slide again multiple times as we go through this presentation. So I will give you all another moment to turn around and get this lovely QR code scanned. But if you miss it, don't worry about it. You will get a chance. If you are a partner or if you are a sponsor or one of our community leaders, please don't forget to put your DQs in so that for the quiz for later on. All right. So moving along here. I would like to welcome everybody to our Appsgiving event for Canada-wide event. We are doing DIY Appsgiving, our Forge edition. So welcome everybody for that. And our goal here for this one is to give you guys some more tools so that you can start doing your own app development. We have here a lovely list of all of our current Canadian chapters and their community leaders. So these are the ladies and gentlemen and individuals that for your chapters you would love to reach out to. We are all working very hard to host events year round. And a few times a year, we all get together to do something very much like this for everybody. So, as always, though, if you need any of us, feel free to reach out. We are all probably the bestest of friends after all this time together, so we can definitely point you around to whomever you need to. We also want to take a moment today to thank our sponsor, Astrodox. We do have them sponsoring our event today along with Alassian. So a big, huge shout out and lots of love over to Astrodox. And of course, as always, the moment you guys are waiting for, our first speaker of the day. So I would like to start off with handing it over to Bree from Alassian. She is going to show us how to build our own forges and how to do all of the things. So Bree, I will be more than happy to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Um, let, let me figure out. They have updated the shares. There you go. All
Thank
yours.
you. Awesome. Oh, let's not do the code first. That's a fun part. Hello everyone, and I'm so excited to be part of Appsgiving this year. My name is Bree, and I am a senior developer advocate at Atlassian. And this is super special because it is actually the first time that I get to talk about Forge in a more public manner. I just started with Atlassian about a month and a couple weeks ago, so I've been learning so much, and I'm so excited to share a lot of the things that I have been learning with you all today. So. Have you ever been in Jira or Confluence or any of the apps really, and you maybe start to say, I wish Jira could, or maybe you start to get into figuring out like what's on the current roadmap for Atlassian or wanting and creating like a wish list for yourself? That's actually one of the things that I find myself doing from time to time, especially with apps that I use a lot. I feel like I always have a lot of ideas or ways that I wish I could extend, but thankfully, Atlassian Forge gives us the ability to do so. So Atlassian Forge, for anybody who is not aware just yet, allows you to build secure native serverless apps for Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, all of the Atlassian products in the suite. So you now have the ability to say, not just I wish, but you basically have the ability to see a need and then also fill that need for yourself. So one of my favorite things about building with Forge apps or in general, like different ways to extend Atlassian overall is that not only can you build things that you need for yourself, but you can also take and reuse those solutions and add them to our marketplace. This is a really great way to maybe earn a little bit of extra cash on the side, but really also help other folks who may have your same problem, or help other folks who are using Jira, Confluence, all of those products in the same way that you are to maybe use them more efficiently. So this, for example, is oh, excuse me, an app that allows you to create dynamic forms and basically accrue data in a very easy and dynamic manner inside of Jira. I don't know if you've ever tried to do a really lengthy or dynamic or complex form before, but sometimes it can get to be a little bit hectic, especially if you're an admin setting those things up. So this, for instance, is a Forge app that allows you to do that a lot more simply. So you may be saying, yes, I can create them, I can put them on the marketplace, but why would I really want to? And there are a couple of different reasons. So one of them is, other than the fact that it allows you to extend and customize Jira, Confluence, all of the Atlassian products in a way that works better for you and for your workflow, it's also easier to build on. So there are things like it's being a serverless platform, which gives you the ability to not have to worry about the more daunting parts of development yourself. So that might be things like hosting. Basically, you get to use our tools and we host it for you, and you get to worry about the fun part, which is development. It's also built with tools that web developers are already very familiar with. So if you already familiar with JavaScript, with React for the framework for building web applications, then you are already one step ahead. So, in terms of getting started with Forge, if you wanted to do so, there are a couple things that I didn't want to put in my demo just because they take a little bit more time, but things that you should be aware of if you would like to start building with Forge. Now, the first thing is there's going to be a little bit of technical setup for you. If you already have developed even a little bit before, you may already have these things configured, but I just want to go ahead and call them out. The first one is going to be configuring Node.js on your local machine. Once you have Node.js configured, you're going to be able to install the Forge CLI. Now, the Forge CLI is going to be where a lot of the magic takes place, sort of behind the scenes, and allow us to run different commands to create projects, to deploy our projects, and install our projects on different instances within Atlassian itself. And then, if you don't already have an instance of Atlassian set up or one that you can play with, you can also set up your own Atlassian cloud developer site. The second thing is going to be having an Atlassian API token, and I'm going to go ahead and send a doc with all of these and all of our documentation, so you don't have to remember all of these little things. But we're going to want to have an Atlassian API token. That's what's going to allow us to log into Atlassian with the Forge CLI so that we can actually access items inside of our Jira instances. And then we're also going to want to create an application itself with the CLI. So I've done a lot of talking. Let me show you a little bit of code. So the Forge CLI, like I said, is going to be what allows us to create the application itself, get our project all scaffolded for us. Now, it's a little bit of a lengthy process, so I went through and I made some opinionated decisions for what we want. Today, what we're going to be building is an app that lives inside of Jira, and it's going to be a very basic hello world sort of weather application that grabs the weather for a specific longitude and latitude. So let's say that we've already gone through and we have done our Forge create in the CLI. It gives us quite a few different files. And I just want to step through what some of these files are so that we're aware. So the first thing is going to be a manifest YAML file. Now, this is going to have all of the information about what your project is, things like its name, what kind of icon it should have, but it's also going to be responsible for things like our backend. Let's say in this case, we are using the Open Weather API to go ahead and retrieve information from a different system. But let's say that you had your own internal system that you wanted to expose information to Jira or Confluence or any Atlassian products to. That's where these would live as well. And then we also just have some more information about our application, like what version of Node we're using and things like that. After we have that, we have two main spaces where a lot of our code is going to live, and that's going to be inside of our source folder. So our front end is going to be in the index.jsx or .tsx, depending on whether you prefer JavaScript or TypeScript. And inside of that, if you've ever developed, like I said, with React before, this should hopefully look a little bit familiar because this is basically one React component that is being exported to Jira itself. And this is going to be the actual front end for our application. And then in terms of a backend or calling additional information from maybe a different service or an external service that we may have, we're going to go into our resolvers, and the main file here is going to be the index.js file. Now, this is going to be where a lot of your business logic tends to live. So let's head over to my instance of Atlassian, and I'm in Jira currently. So I already have my application that is up and running. And like I said, it is basically just a weather application. So if I wanted to add this to my Jira ticket, what I would do is click on the view applications. And now because my application is running, we see that I have a card that I can add to my instance of Jira. What this is going to do is add it right under my description. And the fun part is there are multiple different places where you can add your cards themselves. They can live on the main description of a card. They can live inside of a panel. All of those items you can actually set when you are creating your project with the CLI itself. But for instance, for this project, we see that we have a few things here. We have Breeze, Jira Hello. Words are hard. Breeze Jira Forge Hello World app. Now, this title is going to come again from our manifest, and that's where this is going to be set. Some of those more title things that are going to be set there. And then we also have our app card itself. And we also have the tag that lets us know that we are running it on development. So everything, including the weather conditions down to the temperature in Celsius, the feels like and humidity, is actually what is being handled inside of our React application. So this is a very basic one that basically just has a heading, and we have a couple of different text elements for our feels like, our humidity, and for our temperature. Now, the fun part of building with Forge is I know that even for front-end developers, I feel like there is a spectrum of folks who really enjoy front-end development because they enjoy the more creative part. And then there are some developers who just want to have the components, they just want to be able to plug things in and they can go. The great part is you have the opportunity to do both. If you really enjoy just the quickness and the productivity boost that you get from using UI components, you have the ability to do that. That is what I am doing here with the UI kit that you get when you are developing with Forge. Or if you wanted to do something a little bit more custom and have your own HTML and your own components and your own visual styling, you have the ability to do that as well. For this instance, I'm using the UI kit because I think it makes me a little bit quicker. And then we could also see, for instance, if I refresh again, that it is loading for just a really quick second before it pulls in my location and the actual temperature in those places. Now, this is where we get the bridge between the front end and the back end for this card itself. So the loading logic is happening inside of the front end card where we are just telling it to show a very simple loading state. But on the other side, we are calling the Open Weather API, and it's a free open source API, even though we're all friends here. You're not supposed to put your API key here like that. You're supposed to have an environment file, which is where everything is supposed to go. But just for this instance, we're going to ignore it just really, really quickly. So basically what I'm doing once I get the weather from the actual API itself is I'm fetching it. I want to know for what longitude and latitude, which is Sydney, Australia, which is where our home office is. What does the weather look like? And then I am sending that data directly back to our front end. And then we have a full round trip in terms of having our front end wanting to call external data and then showing that external data. So that is basically a very bare bones but full life cycle of what a Forge app could look like and what it could do. And I really believe that the ceiling is honestly your imagination. Maybe you want to do something like use OpenAI to summarize a lot of comments that show up inside of a Jira ticket itself, or maybe you want a language translator to translate between different languages. Whatever your need is, or however creative you can get, is the fun part about what you can actually build itself. So let me just hop back into my slides super quick. The benefits of building with Forge, other than the fact that you can put items on the marketplace, see the needs that you have, fill those needs, and have full autonomous control. I just want to talk about a couple of other ones super quickly. The first one is being able to build in a way that makes sense to you. So whether you want like AI assisted templates for admins, maybe if you are not necessarily looking to dive all the way into the code just yet, or maybe you are somebody who would like to do all of the technical work and you find it to be a lot of fun to do that development yourself. We have a spectrum where you can do it both ways. The next thing is honestly integrate enterprise grade trust that's built in. One of the hard parts about building and extending platforms can be hosting and making sure that applications live directly within like certain platforms or the tunnel of what that looks like. Forge makes it so easy between hosting, between all of the not fun things about permissions and compliance, everything like that. It handles all of it for you. So you don't have to worry about the infrastructure itself. You just get to build. And then importantly, if you do decide to add items on the marketplace, they are native integrations across all of Atlassian. So this is great because they just look and feel natural to the platform itself. They don't necessarily look like they have come from somewhere else. So they just look and feel native to the platform. So if you wanted to get started today for Appsgiving, a couple of places where you could start are the Forge documentation. There are a couple of different places for you to start, whether you want to get started with a Jira app, a Confluence app, there are a couple of like different Hello World examples for you to just go ahead and walk through. But the second and the more robust option is Forge Quest, which is a fun little coding adventure for anybody who really enjoys getting their hands dirty in a little bit of code. There are two different levels, and if you play both of them, it might take you about 4 to 5 hours to complete. It's a really fun challenge and a fun exercise to get up and started with Forge. And I really love our Atlassian Developers YouTube channel, where you're going to find both deep dives and tutorials as well about everything that we've talked about here today, from getting started with Node.js and getting that installed on your machine to figuring out how to add your cards to Atlassian or how to make tunnels work. I have all of these resources and a couple more in the link if you want to go ahead and scan it. And I just want to say thank you so much. And I will be around and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have and help you all get started with Forge for this Appsgiving. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bree. All right, I will go ahead and screen share. And do, do. Share. All right, thank you so much for that, Bree. Wonderful. I will say that I'll be checking out the Forge Quest myself, and hopefully I can learn a thing or two about some development. For those that know me personally, I cannot code my way out of a paper bag, so. Next up, we do have Dan. So Dan here is going to talk to us about how to get our newly built Forge app into the actual Atlassian marketplace. So Dan, I will go ahead and pass it over to you.
Awesome. So I'll share this screen. And a little bit of overlap amongst the two, mainly because obviously I did use the exact same components and Forge libraries that Bree had mentioned. So I'll kind of gloss over those. I do have some slides about them, but ultimately it is more about that process of once that Forge app is built, what do you do from there? And one of the use cases I'll have is an actual app that's on the marketplace, which is called Astrodocs, and I'll talk a little bit about what that is. But just before, here's what we'll do today, what the actual app is that I had built. This was part of a hackathon in partnership with Atlassian, building an app on Forge. So what the process was with Forge, deploying it, making changes once your app is live. So obviously as your app needs fixes and new features, what that process looks like. And then getting users, right? There's a lot you can do around marketing and promotions, both in and outside of the Atlassian marketplace itself. So I talk a little bit about that towards the end. But the use case here that I built was a Confluence Space app. So the idea that you could use a Confluence Space as sort of your content management system for user help documentation. So Astrodocs can actually read all the pages within a space. It can take that, it can actually produce a website for you, such as help.company.com with a custom domain. And then all those websites are or all those pages within Confluence are indexed. So your users are presented with a sort of Google-like homepage, and they can search on your documentation that previously was internal. The idea here is that all that documentation was already created. So why recreate it in another tool when you can just use an add-on in Confluence where your work is already being done and then present that to your users. Some things potentially to work on down the line are things like themes and even more custom domains or primary domains instead of subdomains. But for now, this is really the core of the app that was built. Now, the process with Forge a huge step up, especially myself coming from the Shopify ecosystem. There's tons and tons of third-party apps. I think there's like 11 or 12,000 where there's just no real developer ecosystem, or there wasn't at the time. Everyone was using different libraries and there was no CLI aspects. So you were just kind of publishing things that didn't really line up, but Forge really brought everything together throughout this development process because there was components, right? There was the manifest file that Bree had shown where you got to declaratively express what scopes you need, what events you're listening to, so that even when a new team member joins, by glancing at the manifest file, you already have a really good idea what that app's going to do. It's also just in black and white as to what permissions you're going to need. So there's no confusion on whether like you're asking for too much or too little, why an API request might not be working due to permissions. The manifest is really the source of truth of whatever your app can do. And of course, the CLI, which I'll get into later, is a matter of typing into the CLI to deploy your app to the world, which is a crazy upgrade. I mean, you no longer have to worry about infrastructure, which ask any developer or full stack engineer, that is one of the biggest nightmares, to no longer have to worry about uptime, worry about managing or provisioning SQL servers, Redis stores, and things like that. But in terms of the Forge, I have a few of them here. Things like status bars, drop-down menus. I even have like some tables in the app with badges and buttons and modals. This used to be the bane of most backend engineers' existence. Trying to center a div in a page sounds so mundane and easy, but it really was what took, 90% of the app was done in a day and business logic wise. And then you spent a week trying to place buttons in the right area. It just didn't make sense. But now it just happens fast because if you need a table, you just bring in the table component. When you need a loading screen, you bring in the loading component. If you need a dialog bar, you can just bring that in right away and then put the information in that you need. You're not worried about the placement of it. You're not worried about the styling of it because it just looks and feels like an Atlassian app should. So that time that was wasted previously, like I was able to fly through this and just create something that looked and felt like a Confluence app without having to worry about that styling burden. And frankly, was like and still is my biggest hurdle. The manifest file, again, apologies for repeating it, but this is exactly what the AstroDocs app uses. It's telling you explicitly what read and write privileges it needs, so that if I brought in another developer to help me, they know that there's events being listened to for when a page is created, updated, or archived. It understands that there's likely some sort of function that's going to react to these updates, so I can understand when someone new installs, I can find that function right away. I also understand the scopes, right? The privileges that this app has. The privileges really describe a lot about what that app can do. I'm reading Confluence spaces. I'm writing to Confluence spaces, reading content within Confluence because I need to extract that documentation, that text, and produce it into a website. So this really just gives you a clear sense of what it's doing. And it kind of helps you architect the app from day one because you just kind of have to think ahead of time, okay, what permissions am I going to need? And it really, when you go through that approval process with Atlassian, they'll tell you, you're asking for this, but your API is not using it. So you maybe have to reduce that because we don't want to give you too many more scopes that you shouldn't have, right? That's the security first mindset that you would hope Atlassian has, and they do. Like I mentioned, deploying this app was like it was so easy. I almost couldn't really understand what it was doing. But like the true meaning of serverless is that these three words at the top here: forge, deploy, production. That was all I had to do to send the code that I had written in Node. Like Brie had mentioned, when we install Node, you're going to write JavaScript functions. Forge, deploy, production, package that code up, and spun up serverless architecture hosted by Atlassian. So I no longer have to be responsible for like an AWS environment or an Azure environment or GCP. By sending that forge deploy command, Atlassian is taking on the burden of hosting it, executing those functions. But they also have explored things like SQL servers, so they can now host a database. They now host a key value store, so like a Redis-like store. They also have object stores, so something like a bigger database, like an S3 bucket would be a good comparison. So they're taking the entire burden of infrastructure, not just the execution, but the storage, the key value, like I mentioned, the object store. This was all provided by Atlassian. So I didn't have to spin up any internal infrastructure while building this app. It was all managed in the cloud. When it came time to publishing, once again, especially coming from the Shopify ecosystem, where there were some people experiencing like 3 weeks of back and forth and resubmitting and getting declined and resubmitting. It was a 24-hour turnaround because of the manifest file clearly describing what I needed to do, and then filling out a few app details, such as what the app's tagline is. These are all what's going to power the marketplace app listing. So you kind of give it some tags, and this kind of ties into getting more users because this app details is going to help your SEO within the app marketplace. So very important to identify what keywords you're going to use in this app details page, because that is likely what's going to be surfaced when your users are searching, your potential users are searching in the search bar for an app that does that relative functionality. So once you fill this out, you get submitted to the App Store. And like I mentioned, it was 24 hours between submitting this and getting an approval that the app was live on the App Store. And I mean, that's like, whether you're doing iOS development or Android, like I mentioned, Shopify, that kind of turnaround was really unheard of. But because of the aspect of Forge hosting and the manifest file really giving instructions to Atlassian as to what the app is doing, they don't need to have those extended periods of time where they're just fighting with you with the slightest little scope problem or whatever it may be. Everyone's really on the same page. Making changes to the app, again, it's a matter of deploying it through the CLI, through the command line, and then of course creating a new version. So anytime you make a big update, whether that's through some sort of backend logic or front end, Atlassian actually automatically recognizes these new versions and allows you to hold them before deploying them. So you could deploy to the cloud and hold it for deploy to the users. So you have this ability to kind of deploy things, let it sit maybe in a staging environment first, test it internally, test it with a few users who might have access to this internal app before producing it or publishing it to the entire user base. So you have very, very good control, and it's just a matter of clicking to promote this new version to the end user. And as soon as that that version is published, that new functionality is now available to the end user. So again, what used to be these like GitHub actions and workflows and deployment pipelines is now a matter of CLI function, create new version. So that hurdle of these pipelines and this big dev process is no longer required. It's truly the new world of deploying third-party applications. And a really cool part about this was that when your app is live, there's a direct integration with Google Analytics on the marketplace app page listing. So I could track anytime someone would be on the marketplace app listing. I could kind of find out where they're coming from. So if there's any sort of like meta ads or LinkedIn ads, you can kind of add a UTM tag to find out what the source of that click was to land on it. Most of them are organic, right through the marketplace. But you can also be able to track what camps are bringing the most attention. And then, of course, the conversion events. So when someone actually does click install, you're able to track, not precisely, but as well as Google allows you to, what the events were leading up to that install event. So you can understand if meta ads are working well, or YouTube ads, or AdWords for Google, or perhaps LinkedIn ads are working. And getting users, this one I can't express enough. There's 300,000 people using Atlassian every day. That's actually the customer number. So there's actually far more, but the actual number of Atlassian sites is about 300,000. That's 300,000 people that can find your app on the marketplace. It's a massive customer base. Without doing any sort of advertising or like promotions, Astrodox found 2 users in the first week of getting deployed without, again, any marketing event. So people just find things. If the app accomplishes the goal and it does it well, using the right keywords, you can absolutely find users in an organic way without having to spend any money. If it solves a problem, people will find it, people will talk about it, and the organic nature of it will sort of push it to the top of those search results. On the right-hand side was the promotion side of things. So you can discount the app, right? You can run seasonal promotions. You can run 50% off, 25% off, all the way down to I think 5% off discounts. You can do these on a one-time basis. You could do the monthly for annual subscriptions. You can issue coupon codes so that people are encouraged to install, get a good sense of what it's like. And then once that discount code expires, then they can go and get put on the regular payment plans. All these ways of kind of getting people in front of the app, getting users and encouraging people to install are available to you, again, in a very easy marketplace dashboard. So the idea of issuing codes through Stripe or anything like that, all that can be handled through the Atlassian marketplace very, very easily. That was my journey on publishing the AstroDocs app through the Atlassian marketplace. Like I mentioned, the actual hackathon was only about 2 weeks long. After that, publishing it took less than a week. And if it didn't, if it hadn't been for me just being, distracted by other things, I probably could have been a couple days had I been more responsive to the Atlassian team. 24-hour turnaround from publishing or submitting the app to actually getting it published is really truly unheard of. And that's, again, not an exaggeration coming from different marketplaces, having worked on iOS development, Android, and Shopify apps. 24 hours is not the case anywhere. But this is the power of use an ecosystem like Forge that is so heavily integrated with the native Atlassian functionality. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening. I saw some things in the chat, so I'll try to make sure we answer those towards the end towards the end of the call.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. All right. No, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know about everybody else, but I know I'll be giving it a go at some point. Again, I want to give a shout out to both of our speakers today. Thank you guys for taking the time to explain to us a bit more about how Forge works and how to get things on the marketplace and how we can build our apps. So greatly appreciate it. Now, before we get into our AMA section, we need to take a lovely group photo. And with our lovely group photo here, we would like to ask everybody to please turn on their cameras for a moment while our lovely community leaders can grab your pretty faces so that, because as with Atlassian, if we don't get pictures, it never happened. And they like to see everybody's smiling faces for these photos. So.
Do you want to unshare so we can have the...
Oh, yes, of course. I will go ahead and unshare. The latest Zoom update I will add has hid my little lovely toolbar a few times over. So, all right. All right, we still have a couple of camera shy folks. Don't worry, as soon as we get the pictures, you guys can all turn them off again. That's okay. But we just need to...
Is Frida ready?
Frida,
Alright.
you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys.
I thought there's going to be a 1, 2, 3 cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, where's the 1, 2, 3 cheese?
So,
Okay.
Ah,
1, 2, 3 cheese.
cheese.
So,
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, I will go ahead and reshare again my screen. All right, so what we have here is we have our AMA time. So I will give everybody a moment here to start connecting while I get my view set up for our AMA. Okay. All right, Bree, Dan, Ariel.
yeah.
Okay, just making sure I got here. Let's see. There we go. Awesome.
All right. So we have a few questions already submitted, but if you have some more, feel free to add them on the Slido deck. So we'll start with the first questions. For the first question, how much experience would you say someone needs with coding to get started with building your own app? Think
I would say at least being comfortable with front-end development and with JavaScript at the minimum. Being comfortable with how to fetch data because 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to work with data that comes from somewhere else, or even if you're pulling information in from the Atlassian API. Understanding like the fundamentals of how React works and how that aspect of like web development works is also going to be really useful as well, because most of what you're developing is going to be that front end. And then you can use JavaScript with Node on the back end. You don't have to, like we said, worry about a lot of the infrastructure, but understanding how the front end works, how you can fetch data with JavaScript, how Node.js even works a little bit would be very, very beneficial as well.
I would agree. I'll say don't take your maybe lack of coding experience as a barrier to entry. If you understand how Jira, Confluence, or the Atlassian ecosystem work and you have a problem to solve, use Forge as a way to get into coding because you know the problem that you want solved. You know that you want an issue to be updated with when a workflow runs and you want this attribute to be updated. If you know that sequence of events, Forge will be very easy for you to as a kind of jumping ground to get into because it would be, okay, how do I do this with Forge? How do I update an issue status? Well, it's just this block of code. And then you kind of build confidence that way. It's saying, I'm not trying to, boil the ocean. I'm trying to solve this little problem. And with the help that Forge gives me, starting at like, second or third base, you're going to feel that much more confident and then it'll just grow there.
awesome.
Absolutely agree. And also, there's so many resources out there for web development specifically. There are an infinite amount of resources out there to learn React. Atlassian and Forge, that's not the proprietary part. Like that's the part that a lot of web developers know, and there are amazing, great teachers out there, or even using AI tools like Cursor, ChatGPT, whatever your favorite version of an AI peer programmer is.
Okay, I have a follow-up question of my own. So you mentioned earlier that there is a Forge quest, like a gamified way to learn it, right? So is it still true that you have to have those background that you mentioned earlier, or do you think that a beginner can also do that and learn from doing the
I think
yeah.
it's broken down enough for you. If you don't have a lot of coding knowledge, there might be some aspects where you may have to go and like maybe look at a different resource or maybe take just a little bit of extra time to understand the more like JavaScript or more like React things about what are going on. But just like Dan said, it shouldn't be a barrier for you to entry, or it shouldn't be something to make you say, okay, I can't do this at all.
Okay, awesome. Great. Thank you both. Does anyone else have follow-up questions for that? Like if you do have some follow-up questions, I think it's okay to unmute and ask your question if it's related to what we're already talking about. But all right, we'll go to the next one. Atlassian is taking the infrastructure burden, but how does it deal with the cost? Who pays for it? Is it free until you send it to the marketplace?
Bree, before you jump in, I realize I probably said something maybe a little bit misleading. Is the burden of the infrastructure isn't always the cost, but the management of it. I don't know where exactly. I saw you posted a link, so I'll let you talk about the pricing of January 26th. My message, I want to make sure I didn't talk about it being free, so I apologize if that was misleading. It was more the mental load of managing the infrastructure. That was the burden that I wanted to emphasize, was that you're no longer the one provisioning these resources in AWS or in Azure, whatever it may be. It's mainly about that aspect, not necessarily the cost.
Absolutely. And I did post a link and I can post it again. There are some changes to the pricing model for 2026. It's going to a consumption model. I'm just getting that to post in the chat. We created a blog post about it with all of the details for the changes that are coming in 2026. But until then, the current structure is going to be like free within platform limits. And I also have a documentation page that shows you what those limits currently are. So I think those two can help you learn a little bit more about how much it actually costs to create or to have a Forge app. I think you're talking on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. No, I was asking Joe. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Does that answer your question? Do you have any follow-up questions?
Oh, it does. Just checking here. There is apparently a free usage allowance. It's just something that I'm always concerned because you can build something, at least in AWS, you could leave something misconfigured and then you would have to pay a huge cost, a huge price for it. So I'm just a bit concerned about, can I do something wrong in the Forge that would end up with a big bill at the end? Or no?
Are you able to maybe place limits into how much you can spend?
I haven't heard of placing an exact limit just yet. I can actually double check to see like what guardrails are available. There is monitoring, but I think what you're trying to convey is something like AWS, for instance, where sometimes you leave your server running a little too long, you go away on vacation, you come back and you realize that your bill has soared even though you completely forgot that it was running. So I can go ahead and double check and get back with an answer.
Thank you.
You, Brie and Dan. Maybe Dan, do you know like to what extent you can do the free things?
I mean,
Like is it enough for you to get your first POC and get things done? Like maybe you can talk more about that.
yeah, for sure. Because I believe it's effective January 2026, so you still have until then to develop the app for essentially no cost.
Yeah.
So now is the time, truly. And I didn't see anything in that article about so there's a free usage allowance that refreshes on a monthly basis. So there will always be a certain tier of execution that you can use for free before those charges start. So I'd imagine based on the functionality of the app, of course, your mileage may vary, but for most early versions, I'm sure the free would be more than enough to get started.
Yeah, so it is free
Absolutely.
right now.
Yeah, when I was thinking of like errors, I was thinking like big things like, oops, this API went on like way too long. I wasn't thinking like smaller things. There should not be a problem with you getting a POC up and running like by any means.
Okay, amazing. All right, thank you. Anyone else have follow-up questions? No. So the next one is, do you suggest using Forge with WSL2 from Answer?
Yeah. I would use anything you're comfortable with. If Windows subsystem for Linux is your preferred way of developing, do what you are comfortable with. I don't think there's any restrictions around Whistle, but I personally have not tried it. That was kind of a past job that I used it, but I don't see any problems why that you'd run into, so long as it can execute Node, which Linux can.
All right, Answer, do you have any follow-up questions? Is he still here? Probably not. All right. Next question. Okay, I think this has been answered about the Forge cost, and the link has been provided. So we'll have that as answered. For newbies, what's the best IDE to start with?
I'm curious to hear Bree's answer for this. This is a big debate amongst developers.
It is. I until recently was still very much in the VS Code camp. That's the one that I've used easily by far for like 14 years, it feels like at this point, since I like started coding. But I have recently switched to Cursor, and that's been like my AI powered editor that I've been using. In terms of newbie friendly, it feels like VS Code, but it gives you the AI intelligence of maybe something like Copilot as well. So if you're just getting started out and you want maybe like a little bit of assistance, I think Cursor might be the way to go. There are also other ones like Windsurf. I haven't used that one like too much, but for me, a combination of Visual Studio Code or Cursor if you would like some more AI features.
I would agree with that. VS Code was my first. I still use it. I have not explored the cursor world yet, but I definitely should.
Cool. Next question. How far away is Rovo from generating code for a Forge app? Or will Rovo eventually be usable like Cursor to help build this Forge apps from Mike?
I have no clue how far it is away from being able to do that. I'm not sure if that's something that is on the closer roadmap or if that is on the horizon for a feature that may come later.
So we'll just have to stay in tune of the announcements, right?
We will. We'll have to stay in tune, but that's also something that I've been working on, not Rovo specifically, but the way that tools like Cursor work are they scrape all kinds of openly available code, and the way that I can help make it better is by creating all kinds of different like code samples and use cases to make it more intelligent when developing for Forge apps. So in doing so, in us building more Forge apps, Cursor and AI will get more intelligent at doing so as well. So it's like a little feedback loop of the ecosystem.
Nice. Awesome. So we don't have any more submitted questions, but if anyone else has any questions that they haven't submitted yet, you can unmute yourself and ask our panel.
It's Craig Strong here. My company, I'm a CTO of a very small company in New York City, and a couple years back, maybe 2 years ago, we built an app. And at the time, we tried and tried to use Forge and finally had to give up because there were significant features missing. So we had to go back to the standard, I forget what it's called now, the previous
Connect.
toolkit, which is still available. And I was just wondering about, there were 5 or 10 major features that we were looking for. And is there a way or some place we can go to sort of kind of look at the roadmap and see, so we could kind of see when these features start coming online, that we might try again and see if we can get into Forge? Because we know that's the future. That's where we need to go eventually.
I don't think we have an open roadmap at this point. I think one of the best places might be the changelog. Are you aware of the changelog for developers? Okay, let me throw it in the chat. So the changelog is going to be the best place to see features that come out, announcements, any like changes to the platform or to the system as they come out. So I think that might be one easy way to just check with the feed and see what's coming, search for different features or different ideas in that little search bar to see if they're there, or like even like filter by like certain announcements or additions.
Awesome. Thank you, Bree. Jason, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask a question about like so let's say if I tried out Forge and developed my app there, but if I later want to have my own server and my own infrastructure, how convenient is it to change to other platform or to our own servers? And what exactly is the process, and how is it from other platforms?
Yeah, I can answer that one mainly because a lot of AstroDocs actually runs off of Forge. There's a big component that does still use the Forge serverless functionality. You can still have an app that exists with like an API on some sort of server outside of Forge. The one thing you'll have to specify again in the manifest file is that you have data leaving Forge. That means that you don't have the ability to have like pinned GDPR through the Forge. So a lot of European customers have asked Atlassian for the ability to self-contain all execution of Jira data to the Atlassian servers pinned to a certain geography. So you'll lose the true like built. I don't think you'll lose the built for Forge. I don't want to claim that, but there's certain badges that you'll lose if you have data leaving environment that executes beyond what Forge offers. It's very possible you could use Forge as a front end only and then have everything else execute on your own servers, but there are repercussions around the certain sort of badges or certifications that you're able to opt into through the Atlassian marketplace.
And if you have used like other platforms, I know sometimes the app, like if we use AWS or something, sometimes your app is kind of too embedded into that infrastructure. It's difficult and much more complicated to later change the infrastructure or platform. How convenient or how different the Forge is from other platforms? Could you describe on that a little bit?
So Mike actually just posted runs on Atlassian was the badge that I was looking for. The name runs on Atlassian. That's the the badge that people are looking for at times when installing apps. So that just before I answered that was the name. Your question around the infrastructure. I mean, it is difficult to remove yourself from the Forge infrastructure because that is what you're kind of signing up for, right? You're kind of in a sense committing to the vendor that is Forge. I don't know if there'd be a way around it if you built a Forge app to not like you have to use the Forge execution environment to some respect. I don't think there's a way to opt out of it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Brie, do you have anything to add or?
I do not. I think Dan is more of an expert at this one than I am, because of all the work that he's done with getting the apps into the marketplace.
All right, yeah, no worries. Craig, you have another question?
Yes,
Go for it.
yes. Thanks to that gentleman's excellent question. That reminded me some of the issues that I was specific issues I was thinking about, and in particular was about LLM. So using a large language model, and you said the GDPR issues and data residency and stuff like that, but isn't Rovo sending data and queries out to OpenAI, out to these LLMs anyway? So how is that data resident, right? I mean, if it's all going out, my understanding, if I use ChatGPT on my computer, every prompt that I use, every prompt that I submit is searchable. It's on Google, it's public. So isn't that the same situation with Atlassian Cloud, that as I'm using these LLM powered features, that stuff is actually getting exposed?
I think I understand your question. So let me answer in this in the way and if I'm not, then please correct me. But there's definitely going to be companies out there that are not opting into Rovo because of that very reason. They are going to be looking for apps that are self-contained in the same environment that they need to execute and conduct business. I know a lot of German companies specifically have very strict regulation around that. Those same companies that are looking for the runs on Atlassian are the same ones that aren't going to be opting into Forge most likely, or to Rovo most likely for that very reason. So I think both of those things can be true. You will have Rovo sending things out to OpenAI, but you will also have people looking for a runs on Atlassian badge for specific use cases to make sure that there's no egress is the terminology that they've been using. So thanks again, Mike, for that of data throughout the execution of that app's functionality. So I think both of those can be true. It's a good point, but those same people are likely the later adopters of Rovo for that very reason. Yeah, as Mike just posted, I'm sure when you enable Rovo, you're opting into the fact that it's getting egressed. So they're going to tell you about that.
Is there all the UI available for modification? Let's say that I want to create a fixed version and pre-populate the name when the user clicks on create the fixed version. Is that possible on your experience?
The fixed version in the Forge UI, like when you're creating a new app.
Yeah, like modifying that portion of the UI. Or is it all only available for work items?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Do you mind rephrasing it?
All right, so let's say that you want, I want that when the user click on the create fixed version UI portion, I want that when the user click on the fixed version, it pop-ups a screen. I want the fixed version name to be pre-populated, not in the work item, but in the fixed version by itself.
I don't want to say for positivity, but I want to say that the fixed version itself wouldn't be editable, that it would just have to be whatever is in the app itself. And it would depend on the location that you choose when you do, for instance, like the Forge Create app.
Okay. Okay, so that module should exist in order to modify that portion of the UI.
Are you asking about like changing the actual Jira issue or the Forge app fixed version? Because there may be some similar terminology used between the two.
No, I'm saying like when you go to project settings and then versions in that part, not in the Jira issue.
So changing the actual UI that lets you switch between different project versions, not the app itself.
No, I mean like inside of the project settings, you see that there's an option that you see versions or components inside of the projects. You're familiar with that part?
Then Jira software, like you
Jira
have
software, yeah.
adding the option of a fixed version.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the UI itself. Maybe that's what it might be. Can you
Okay,
lead
no
me
problem.
to,
I can figure it out.
if you can like lead me to, or like maybe like breadcrumbs to where it is, I might be able to go ahead and take a look really quick.
Okay, so if you open any project, let's say as a Jira software project, and then go to project settings, you will see there the option versions. So if you click on create version, there's a pop-up. Can I modify that UI? Is it possible with Forge?
So the UI of an existing project setting page.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
look like it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else have other questions?
Yes, one question that I have based on the question that the gentleman just did. Can you update existing entities in Jira, or you can just add the new app that will build that you build and you can just add new stuff? For example, I don't even know how an example that I can give here, but let's say summary. Every time a new ticket is created, we want to pre-populate the existing field summary with a text. Is that possible or no? Everything that I can do is within my app.
No, you can definitely do that. So you can react to things happening. So in your exact use case, you would subscribe to the Jira issue updated or Jira issue create event. That event would be linked to a piece of code that would execute every time that happens in Jira. So you could say, if this issue is part of project X, I want to populate the issue summary with this text. And maybe that text is based on the user that created it. Maybe it's based on the time of day. So you can absolutely update things. It doesn't just have to exist off in the Forge UI. You can write to components such as issues and issue fields and things like that as events are happening.
Okay. But I wouldn't be able to change, for example, the project settings name to something like project.
I just quickly looked. I didn't see a lot of project setting APIs in the Forge documentation. A lot of it has to do with like issues, Jira fields, screens, Confluence spaces, Confluence pages, and more content than the settings.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, so thank you, Bree and Dan, for answering all the questions from our participants. And thank you for everyone also who submitted their questions and unmuted their mics. It's a great way to learn from what others are asking and other issues others are facing. So I'll turn over the time back to Heather.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for that. Again, thank you. If there are questions that we did not get to, please submit them in the chat or feel free to email one of us after the presentation and we will be more than happy to get those answered for you offline. So moving along, it is time for our quiz. This is going to be a multiple choice quiz. You will have 30 seconds to enter an answer on your phone. It will be under the if you are scanned in on your phone, it will be under the polls section on your screen. So we will be using speed as our tiebreaker, and our top three, our first, second, and third place will be the ones to win a prize. So I will go ahead and pass the screen share over to Brendan. And as our quiz master, he will be the one running it today.
Okay. Can people see my screen? I see people joining there. We will give you a minute or two before we start with the first question. And we've got a handful of handyman themed questions plus some general knowledge around Canada, and we wish everybody the very best of luck. And the top three, as Heather mentioned, will be awarded a prize at the end. If you want to participate and you're one of the organizers, community leaders, again, just add that DQ to the top front of your name. So we will get started in, let's say, 15, 20 seconds or so. All right, everybody ready? Okay, first question. Which salad dressing was named after a region in Ontario? Caesar, Thousand Islands, French, or Ranch? Got 5 more seconds. All right. And a majority of people have, about 75% people have guessed the correct answer, which is the Thousand Islands regions of Ontario. So Next question. When was Canadian Tire money first introduced? 1958, 1962, 1977, or 1986? Few more seconds. Locking in those answers. Most people are thinking it's one of the first two, and it was introduced way back in 1958, so it's been around quite some time. All right, question 3. What was the theme for the World Expo held in Vancouver in 1986? The oceans, man in his world, transportation and communication, or leisure in the age of technology? Few more seconds. All right, looks like half the people guessed transportation and communication, and that is correct. That's the expo that brought the city its SkyTrain. So, all right. Question 4. As of right now, how many times have the Toronto Blue Jays made the World Series? And a lot of Canadian baseball fans are very happy that I had to change the answer on this one a day ago. All right. And the correct answer is, again, with the majority, 3 times. Previous 2 times they have won the World Series. We will have to see how they do this time. Question 5. Which one of these Canadian handyman TV personalities was not born in Ontario? Brian Baumler, Scott McGillivray, Mike Holmes, or Jonathan Scott? Few seconds. And the majority believing it is Jonathan Scott, which is the correct answer. Presumably his twin property brother Drew was also born here in Vancouver, whereas the rest are all from Ontario. Very, very handy out there in Ontario. Question 6. When did construction of the original Canadian Parliament buildings begin? 1858, 1867, 1898, or 1928? Got a few questions. Always never hurts to guess if you don't know. So, even though the country itself didn't reach Confederation until 1867, construction of the Canadian Parliament buildings began several years before in 1859. Congratulations to everybody got that right. Question 7. What was the name given to the Canadian-built robotic manipulator system used by NASA space shuttles from 1981 to 2011? Can-Do, Manipucan, Canadarm, or RoboCan? A few more seconds. All right. And the majority did the correct answer, which is the Canadarm. All right, 3 questions to go. Question 8. Instant Replay was created by CBC TV producer George Retzlaff in 1959 or 55. What was the first broadcast to make use of it? The Olympic Games, the Grey Cup, the Hockey Night in Canada, or the Queen's Christmas message? And if we're going to do use anything for TV in Canada, it is going to premiere on Hockey Night in Canada. All right, penultimate question. Approximately how many years of erosion did it take to create Niagara Falls? 500, 1,000, 5,000, or 10,000? Few more seconds. The correct answer there is approximately 10,000 years it took in order to generate the beautiful falls they have there in southern Ontario. All right. And last question. In 1975, the CN Tower became the world's tallest freestanding structure. For how long did it hold that record? 18 years, 24 years, 32 years, or 50 years? Meaning that it is still the world's tallest freestanding structure. All right, quite a number of guesses there. Correct answer would be 32 years until it was replaced by the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And we can see what our final leaderboard looks like. Susan, good for you there. Unfortunately, you're disqualified as a community leader. But we
Sorry,
have
I had fun.
Venkata, David C, and Melquire. If you can please message in the chat an email at which we can get a hold of you, and then either just privately or to your community leader. Once we've got that, we will send out a prize to you in the next couple of days. So okay, hand it back to you, Heather, and while we're just waiting on those three.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we're waiting on them, we'll leave the screen up for a moment. And, I will absolutely thank everybody for attending today. It has been fabulous having you here. We have a lot of links in the chat, so I do want to call out. Thank you for those. We will be sharing all of those links as well with the recording. So Mike, thank you for those. Also as well, Bree, thank you for all of those lovely links as well. Again, I do want to thank both Bree and Daniel for presenting today. You guys are awesome. Thank you for getting us started on this journey, and hopefully, we'll see a lot more new apps, even if you're not placing it up on the marketplace. These are tools that you can use for your own internal applications and your own internal sites. I know a lot of us have use cases where we like to keep those internal as well and be able to share those. So at least within our own environments to make our own lives easier. So thank you for that. And then, but outside of that, I would say, again, thank you everybody for coming. There are events that we are hosting across our group, across Canada in the upcoming months as part of our winter season. So please go to ace.atlassian.com and keep your eyes open for those events. Sign up for your chapters. You'll get notified when they get published. As well, Brendan, do you have everything you need?
I'm still waiting for Venkata.
Did you get
There we
David?
go. I got his there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
There,
you have
thank Venkata. Okay. And Mel, got Mel. Okay.
Yeah. And I have David as well.
All
perfect.
right.
Congratulations to
I'll
three.
catch up with you. Congratulations, guys. Thank you so much, Bree, and thank you so much, Daniel. That was really informative.
And thank you, Brendan, as always, for being our quizmaster and giving us more to learn about our country every time.
The best.
And again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day. We hope that, you guys are either staying warm or cool, depending on where you are at the moment. I know for myself personally, I am going to be going and getting my heating blanket soon. So, and trying to stay warm. But in any event, thank you all again. We hope to see you all soon. We love seeing everybody's smiling faces. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.